How do you prepare to buy a home in an inflated market? What are the things that you should look at and pay attention to versus what are the things that you should ignore? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's video. We're going to talk about how to prepare in the current housing environment. Whether you're buying in 2023, whether you're buying in 2024, essentially this video is to help you put yourself in the best position if you do plan on buying a house at some point in the future. It's also to prepare you and help you understand the things that you really shouldn't pay attention to that are out there floating along in media headlines, in different articles from different YouTubers, because whether it's there for clickbait or whether it's there to be malicious, either way, it should be absolutely ignored. And that's what we're going to dive into in today's video. So when I talk about the idea of buying in an inflated market, the reason I say the word inflated, because that's what everyone out there is using. And the reason they're using the word inflated is because prices are high, interest rates are high, housing affordability is sitting near all-time lows. It's just really, really expensive to buy a home in many markets out there. And the easy solution for many people that don't understand the fundamentals is to say that we're in a housing bubble, that everything that goes up must come down. And the reality is that's not true. In fact, there's a lot of data out there to support the idea that everything that goes up doesn't necessarily come down. And what I mean by that is the average home in the United States has appreciated about 4.6% over the last 65 years, which again doesn't happen in a straight line. Some years the housing market goes up 5-10%, other years it goes up 1%, but once you average those out over that 65-year period, you're getting about 4.6% on average. But what we've seen over the last couple of years is a lot of markets out there have appreciated somewhere between 25, 35, 45%. And the easy answer for all of those people that have been priced out of the market is to say, well, the bubble has to pop, because the only real measure they have is 2007, 2008, when we truly went through a financial crisis. Now, the market is entirely different this time in many, many ways, which we're not going to dive into in today's video. But there is one thing I do want to focus on before we dive into the idea of preparing to buy a home in this market. And that's the myth out there, the people out there that are talking that we're in this housing bubble because home prices versus incomes is so far out of whack compared to the historical norm. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about right after you hit that thumbs up if you find any value in my videos at all. In fact, if you like me wearing a hat, hit the thumbs up. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on everything real estate related. Now, at the moment, there's one main argument, whether it's you're watching the Crash Bros or you're watching Reventure Consulting or whoever it is out there on YouTube, talking about housing prices have to crash in certain markets because home prices are far exceeding that of the incomes in those areas. And I will say those two pieces do make up housing affordability, but there's a third leg to that stool that no one talks about when they talk about this idea of home prices being way above the incomes. And that is interest rates. When interest rates go as low as we saw during the pandemic, that gives buyers so much more purchasing power relative to their income, which in turn pushes home prices up, which is exactly what we've seen. Now, could some of these markets be in a small bubble? Absolutely. But do they have to crash 25, 35% to get back to the mean? And the answer is no, because they don't need to crash. You just need some sideways movement in the market, in some of these markets out there, which you're likely to see home prices move sideways for an extended period of time to allow wages to catch up, along with home prices stabilizing and likely seeing interest rates lower, which will improve housing affordability. On top of that, one other thing that isn't being talked about is the down payments in some of these scenarios. Yeah, maybe home prices far exceed the median income in some of these markets, but think of how much equity was gained in some of these properties over the course of the last few years. What they've done is they've taken that money along with the low interest rates in the market, which has allowed them to transfer it to other markets out there, in turn driving up those home prices. So if you're a home buyer in this market, a serious home buyer, somebody that really wants to own a home, don't get caught up in what everyone out there is saying. You have to do the right things for you. Now, people will look at me and say, Jeb, you're a real estate agent. You're just pushing people to buy homes. And the reality is, I just want to educate you on the process. The majority of you out there are not going to use me to buy a home. Therefore, I don't really benefit. But what I will say, and something I've said many, many times, is homeowners have a 44 times greater net worth than those of renters. In fact, 65% of Americans' net worth is actually held in real estate when they retire. And that's because owning real estate allows you to do a couple of things. The first is you're paying off that principal every single month when you're making that payment, in addition to having a stable fixed monthly payment versus rent. Rents typically go up 3 to 5% almost every single year. By buying a home, fixing the payment, you're fixing the largest single line item in most people's budget, which is their housing expense. In addition to that, you're able to take advantage of that appreciation, that average of 4.7% over the last 65 years. That's what creates that long-term generational wealth. So assuming you understand that and assuming it's something you actually want to accomplish, how do you do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about right now. The very first thing you need to do in a market like the one we're in at the moment is have a longer term time horizon. And the reason I say that is appreciation, wealth is built over time in real estate. It doesn't happen overnight. There's a saying out there, don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. And the premise behind that is by holding real estate long term, you'll be able to take advantage of the things that I mentioned earlier, having that longer term time horizon. So what does a longer term time horizon look like? In my opinion, I would say somewhere between 5 and 10 years on average. Like I said earlier, I think there's a really good chance that we see a sideways movement in home prices for an extended period of time, which means we might see a couple of years where home prices go up 2-3%, and you might see a couple of years where home prices are flat, maybe even go down 1%. But on average, you're more or less going to see a flat market. And what that's going to do is allow all of that appreciation that we gained in that 2-year period between 2020 and 2022, it's going to allow us to revert back to that trend line, which over time will allow us to continue appreciating in home prices. Now, on top of that, something I really, really want to stress here is that you need to find a home that fits your lifestyle now as well as your future lifestyle. And what I mean by that is if you're a couple and you're planning on having some kids or growing a family or having dogs or whatever it is, and you're looking at studios at the moment, that's probably not the right choice, right? What you need to be doing is looking to see where you're going to be in 3, 5, 7 years. Now, I realize that's completely unpredictable, something you can't 100% nail down, but you need to be thinking about those things, because what you don't want to do is buy, say, that studio, that 1 bedroom, end up having a child, maybe 2 kids, a dog, pets, whatever, and then saying, this no longer works, we need to sell it on year 3, because that essentially goes against number 1, which was the time horizon, having that longer term time horizon. So you need to find a property that fits you now as well as one you can grow into. But that also means maybe a property where you can do an addition, you can add on, you can change it to potentially meet your future lifestyle, right? So maybe you can find a 2-bedroom, 2-bath now, you know you want a family, but you know, hey, there's a yard big enough, I might be able to add on to this property and make it what I want. It's really in the area that I want to be, the school district we want. It has everything we want, but the size at the moment, but we can add that on. That's the way that you need to be thinking about real estate in the current environment. In addition to that, we're likely headed into a recession if we're not already in one, which means some people out there are going to lose their jobs. So what I would be saying, if you're thinking in this market, you need to have stable employment. Now, while employment is never guaranteed, you need to be in a position where you think, hey, listen, if I'm laid off, I'm able to go find a similar job at a similar pay scale. Now, again, I realize we're stretching here. We don't know if any of that is guaranteed, but what I can say is if I'm a banker making X amount, I should be able to go to another bank or whatever and make a similar salary even in a changing market. So you really need stable employment out there. Again, nothing is guaranteed, but the people that are going to lose their jobs are typically the people at the lower end of the pay scale or the unproductive people in the office. So if you're lazy in your office and there's a chance that you might be cut because you're underperforming your peers, well, then you probably don't have stable employment. But if you're somebody out there that hustles, you work hard, you know you do a good job, you know you're an asset to a company, then chances are you're in really good shape. So with that said, with stable employment means stable income. You really want to have those, but you also want to be comfortable with the monthly payment. I know people out there that have stretched themselves with current interest rates with the idea that, hey, it'll be a little bit more comfortable when interest rates come down. I don't think you're in an environment where you should be thinking like that. I personally believe interest rates will come down. How much? Really hard to say. So you need to be comfortable with the current monthly payment for an extended period of time, just in case interest rates don't come down. In addition to that, you want to have savings in the bank. You want to have money in the bank. Maybe you do lose your job. You are comfortable with the payment, but you want to have some reserves just in case you're not able to find that job immediately. Or maybe you just want to take a break and find the right job instead of accepting any job out there just to get back in the game. So just make sure you have some money in the bank, you're comfortable with the payment, stable employment, as well as having that longer term time horizon. And lastly, just make sure you're working with a professional, whether you're buying a home, whether you're getting pre-qualified on the mortgage side. And if you don't have someone that you can trust, do me a favor. I've put a link in the description below. I'm happy to refer you to somebody I know, like, and trust that can guide you through that process. Or perhaps you're just starting the process of buying a home, not really sure where to start. I actually created a first-time homebuyer course to guide you through the process from A to Z. Really breaks down every single area of the home buying process. Over 50 videos in there. So if you're new to the process, want to know where to get started, do me a favor and check out that link. But if you're watching this video thinking, I might have regrets if I buy a home this year, is it really the right thing for me? Do me a favor and check out this video here.